Welcome back to Essentials, where we break down big ideas and show why they matter, right now. I'm Mike Newman. Today we're diving into the book Why Nations Fail, a global bestseller that just earned its authors, Darren Acemoglu and James Robinson, the 2024 Nobel Prize in Economics. And we're asking, what lessons does it hold for the United States? And what can we learn from how Donald Trump governed? Will the USA become a failed nation? Joining me is Carly Jensen. Carly, always a pleasure.
Thrilled to be here, Mike. This is one of those topics where the theory is fascinating, but the real-world application is urgent. We have discussed the book in an earlier episode, but the Trump administration makes it necessary again to look at the lessons from the book.
All right, start us off. What's again the main argument of why nations fail?
The big idea is this: countries thrive or collapse based on their institutions. Not geography, not culture, but the rules of the game. Who has power, how it's used, and whether the system encourages everyone to participate. The authors argue that inclusive institutions, which are fair, accountable, and encourage innovation, lead to prosperity. But extractive institutions, where elites rig the system for themselves, lead to stagnation or failure.
So it is about leadership that makes the difference.
Indeed, leadership of a country says it all.
So what do those institutions that you mentioned actually look like?
Inclusive institutions are things like a free press, independent courts, regular elections with peaceful transfers of power, independent universities, and laws that protect your property, your vote, and your voice. Extractive institutions, on the other hand, concentrate power, silence critics, and bend the rules to benefit a small group.
And you see Trump's presidency as veering toward the extractive side?
Yes. Trump challenged or tried to undermine almost every major pillar of institutional integrity. He attacked the judicial system, undermined trust in elections, labeled the press the enemy of the people, and bypassed Congress with executive power. He didn't just criticize institutions, he worked to discredit them.
This really going on in the USA at the moment?
Oh yes. You see it when Trump uses government grants against Harvard University, or when he wants to replace the chairman of the Federal Reserve because the guy has his own opinion. Or the example when he ignores ruling by the Supreme Court, such as the court order to get back a person that was deported to El Salvador by mistake. These are all big red flags.
Before we get into Trump, I want to go back to the book. I mentioned the authors won the Nobel Prize in 2024. What made their theory prize-worthy now?
Because it's proving true, again and again. Countries around the world that protect institutional checks like South Korea, Germany, or Canada are thriving. Meanwhile, countries that hollow out their institutions, like Russia, Venezuela, or Hungary, are facing authoritarian backsliding, economic crises, or both. Acemoglu and Robinson provided a framework for understanding why that happens and what to do about it.
So, are there any countries that got it right, that built strong institutions and saw real success?
Yes, Mike, Why Nations Fail gives us some great examples. England, after the Glorious Revolution in 1688, limited the power of the monarchy and empowered Parliament. That created conditions for the Industrial Revolution, one of history's greatest economic booms. The United States, in its early design, was a textbook case of inclusive institutions, checks and balances, protection of property rights, a relatively free press, and widespread participation. That's a big part of how it became a global powerhouse. Botswana is an incredible modern-day example from Africa. After independence, its leaders chose inclusive policies, kept corruption low, and invested in education. As a result, it's been one of Africa's most stable and prosperous nations.
And there's that story in the book about the African king and the farmland.
Yes, in the Kingdom of the Congo, the king had the power to reassign land ownership at will. So if you planted crops, you had no guarantee you'd be able to harvest them. That kind of institutional uncertainty killed productivity. Farmers simply stopped planting. And that same dynamic shows up today, just in different clothes.
Like with Trump's trade wars?
Exactly. He imposed tariffs unpredictably, one week against China, the next against allies like Canada. American farmers and manufacturers couldn't plan, investment dropped, uncertainty surged, and the same goes for attacks on the election system. If citizens don't trust that votes count, why vote? If judges are dismissed as partisan hacks, why follow rulings? That erosion of trust is exactly how extractive institutions grow.
So what do you think happened here?
Well, no one in the circle of Donald Trump dared to tell him that the tariffs are a bad idea. There are no strong figures in the government that dare to stand up against him. Some of them probably know it is a bad idea, but they do not speak up.
Oh, that is worrying. How could this happen?
Donald Trump likes to surround him with people that earn their position based on loyalty to him, and they depend on him, nothing else. So then you got stuck with TV commentators, people from the wrestling world, people who would have never been in such high-level positions if it wasn't thanks to Trump. Think about Pete Navarro, Pete Hegseth, or JF Kennedy Jr. Without Trump, these people would never be part of the American government. Quite sad, really.
Okay, so we get it. This weakens the country. But here's the big question. What do we do about it? How does the U.S. push back and rebuild institutional strength?
Great question, Mike. The book doesn't just diagnose, it inspires solutions. Here's what we need to do. Congress must reassert its constitutional powers over war, over spending, and especially over the executive branch. When any president, Trump or anyone, overreaches, there needs to be real consequences. We need to insulate the Department of Justice, the Federal Reserve, and the courts from political interference. Let them do their jobs without fear or favor. That means reforming how appointments are made and strengthening oversight. People can't defend democracy if they don't understand how it works. We need civic education in schools, voter protections, and efforts to get more Americans engaged in the democratic process. Not just every 4 years, but every day. A free press is the watchdog of democracy. We need to defend it, not just from political attacks, but from corporate consolidation and algorithmic misinformation. Local journalism, in particular, needs investment and protection. A lot of what protects U.S. democracy isn't law, it's custom, and customs can be broken. We need laws that require tax returns from presidents, that limit pardons in cases of personal conflict, that ensure peaceful transitions of power.
That's a solid list. Still, I do not understand it. Not all Americans are dumb. So why is it not already changing? Why is there no big movement against Trump that takes care of these actions that you mentioned?
Interesting that you bring this up. There are several interlocking reasons. Firstly, many of the protections in U.S. democracy, like presidential transparency, cooperation with congressional oversight, or conceding elections, are based on norms, not binding laws. Trump broke these norms repeatedly, and because they weren't codified, there were few legal mechanisms to stop him in real time. To give you an example, no law says a president must release their tax returns or fully cooperate with congressional subpoenas. Trump didn't, and many legal battles dragged on or went unresolved. Secondly, in highly polarized environments such as the current USA, party loyalty often outweighs institutional loyalty. Many Republican lawmakers and officials chose party or personal political survival over defending democratic norms. Thirdly, do not forget that Trump appointed over 200 federal judges and 3 Supreme Court justices, reshaping the judiciary for decades. While many courts did rule against Trump's efforts, especially after the 2020 election, there was also a chilling effect. Judges became increasingly cautious, and in some lower courts, Trump-friendly rulings reinforced his power. And mind you, democracies are designed to be deliberate and cautious, not reactive. That's usually a strength. But when someone breaks norms rapidly and relentlessly, institutions often struggle to catch up. Courts move slowly, Congress needs votes, the public loses patience. Trump used that to his advantage, overwhelming the system with controversy.
This sounds that it'll take a long time to recover from all of this. Are there not already signs of resistance?
Oh yes, Harvard is fighting Trump. Powell, the chair of the Federal Reserve, is not giving in, and even the Supreme Court is taking a stance against Trump.
Okay, but is there no stronger force that can stop Trump and these chaotic policies quickly?
Yes, there is a force that will manage Trump.
Oh, now you make me very curious. Who is that?
Financial markets. We already saw that the financial markets stopped the madness on the trade tariffs. The markets will also not accept the removal of the chairman of the Federal Reserve. Financial markets will provide the guardrail on the policies. That is our only hope for the very near future. For the rest, it will be sitting it out.
So what's the final takeaway for our listeners?
Here it is. America's future depends on whether we choose inclusion over extraction, shared power over concentrated control. Trump's governing style may have looked strong, but it left the U.S. weaker, more divided, and less certain of itself. If we want to avoid the fate of nations that failed before us, we need to double down, not on individuals, but on institutions. The consequences of Trump's policies will be severe on the short run, but on the long run, they will be devastating.
Carly Jensen, thank you for the insight and clarity. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Mike. Stay vigilant.
That's it for this episode of Essentials. Remember, strong leaders don't fear strong institutions. They're made stronger by them. Until next time, I'm Mike Newman. Stay informed, stay involved, and stay essential.